Whether it's Kyle Schwarber or Hunter Greene, we have not yet heard the rumor of the actual move that the Cincinnati Reds will make this offseason.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Reds podcast. Locked On Reds is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day and now. The number one sports podcasting network in all the land. Thank you so much for helping make that a reality. My name's Stephen Offenbaker. His name's Jeff Carr. We love baseball. We love these Cincinnati Reds. We love talking about baseball. We love talking about the Reds. In fact, we've been doing that very thing for a combined 14 seasons, talking about Cincinnati Reds baseball with you, and we love doing it. On today's show, a little bit later, this is live. We're live on YouTube here on this Friday morning, Black Friday. Hope you've already gotten some of your shop on, recovering from Turkey Day and a great Bengals win. Hooday, Joe Burr is back. Hope you're feeling good today with your family and all recharged. We're going to get into your questions and comments as we're live a little bit later in the show. We're also going to talk about something super fun, guys. I'm so excited for this topic in segment 2 because we're going to be talking about the death of the Dirty Birds and their rotten, stinking fans down in St. Louis. The St. Louis Cardinals are blowing it up, and we are excited to see it. We've got that coming up for you in just a few minutes. But where we're going to begin was with the rumor mill, because there's been 2 big rumors this offseason. One of them about your boy up in Middletown, Jeff, Kyle Schwarber, and the other one about an apparent rift developing between the Reds and Hunter Greene to the point where they would consider trading him. And we're going to start with those rumors and ask ourselves, are either of them really likely? Are either of them possibly even true? We're going to talk about that on today's show, brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. All right, Jeff Carr, we're live. We got folks in the chat. We're ready to go. Let's dig into the rumor mill. That sweatshirt's looking a little tight on you. You might have overdone the pumpkin pie last night there, buddy. Just want to get into these rumors because there are the 2 big ones. There's those 2 guys we talked about, and everything else Nick Krall is holding so close and tight that nothing has leaked, which is his way. That's not a surprise. That's how he does things. But you look at these 2 big rumors, and interestingly enough, I think there's validity to both. I think both of these situations are where there are rumors that there's something behind them. They're backed up a little bit, because a lot of times with the Reds, what we'll see, at least in the front half of the offseason, are the national guys that's looking to get clicks and fill space, and they'll throw the Reds in a little bit, or, you know, the age old, well, the Reds checked in on so-and-so. Well, yeah, Nick Krall called and found out he was going to cost more than $15 and moved right along. So there's those rumors. Neither of these big names are those things. I think Kyle Schwarber has a legitimate want of being in Cincinnati. It's just going to be a business decision, right? Like if money, all things being equal, I think Kyle Schwarber would come play here, and I think he would want to be here. And then the Hunter Greene stuff, I think, is 100% true. I think that was stuff that the team communicated to the beat writers, and Mark Sheldon ran with it. I really, really do. And the absence of the other rumors just tells me Nick Krall's doing Nick Krall things.
Yeah, because he loves to hold his cards close to the vest as much as he is. I don't think, like, people want to give him grief as though he is not active. I believe he's active. I believe he's trying to get things done. But at the same time, he does this, you know, like radio silence thing where it's like, no, we don't want anybody to know what we're doing until I announce it. And the reason that I don't think either one of these rumors are coming true, Steve, is not because the rumors themselves are bunk, but because of certain variables. In one case, the variable is the Reds, and in the other case, the variable is the other teams. The variable for the Reds is easy. Kyle Schwarber. What kind of an offer are they going to give Kyle Schwarber? Because you and me have sarcastically quipped that Kyle Schwarber would be on the phone right now if they called him, and then the offer for him would be, how much would you like to pay the Cincinnati Reds to come play for them? Like, that would be probably what they would, at least, you know, not necessarily probably, but it would not be competitive compared to what the Phillies, the Cubs, the Mets, and the Dodgers, and whoever else are going to be in on Kyle Schwarber will offer. But then on the Hunter Greene side of things, this is not to say that I don't believe in this rumor. I believe that there's smoke with this rumor. The problem is I don't think Nick Krall is going to get the offer that he wants. I don't think Nick Krall, I feel like he understands he is under no obligation to trade Hunter Greene. He doesn't have to do it quickly. And he's going to be looking for the type of trade package that you get back and everybody goes, wow, okay, that makes sense. And right now, I don't think he has that on the table. So those two rumors I don't think come true. I think that we are talking about something else. And in the spirit of Black Friday, we know how this team wants to operate. They're going to be looking for all the deals on the free agent market. The guys like the Adolis Garcias who are probably looking for 1 year prove it type deals, albeit I think Garcia's probably looking for a multi-year deal, but I think that the way that teams will offer him will be 1 year prove it deals. And so the Reds will have a chance at that. And they'll look at other guys that need prove it deals. They're not going to go spend $30 million a year on Kyle Schwarber as much as I want them to. That's not to say that I don't want it to come true. I just don't see it happening.
Just like there was no Shohei Ohtani in the bargain bin when Nick Krall went looking on the clearance rack, there is also no Kyle Schwarber on the BOGO deal for Black Friday. It's not happening. He's going to cost what he costs. I look at these rumors, Jeff, and, we frame this as which is most likely true. The Hunter Greene stuff is most likely true. That came from sources within the team. Mark Sheldon was not going to run with that if he didn't have that stone cold. And the fact that he asked Nick Krall that direct question tells me one of two things. Like, a lot of people inside the building were talking about it, and Mark just decided, all right, I'm taking my shot with Nick Krall. Or Nick Krall already knew the question was coming because Nick Krall told Mark Sheldon to ask me about Hunter Greene. One of those two things is what is true. Either way, it came from inside the building. We heard it from inside the building. We know what was scooting around to the offices there. So the Hunter Greene stuff is the most likely true thing, that the Reds could trade him. That being said, this offseason's a little bit different than offseasons normally are. We've talked about this with the CBA expiring. We've seen a lot of 1 year deals. We saw a lot of qualifying offers be accepted. This could be a time that the Reds could strike. But if they're going to get a Kyle Schwarber, I think it happens very, very close to spring training, because what Kyle Schwarber's reps need to see is that he's only getting offers for 1 year deals, that he's not getting big money multi-year deal offers, because then the Reds could swoop in and give him a $35 million 1 year deal, make it more palatable, and then move on. This, from Joshua here, the Reds have $27 million on the books after the 2026 season. They have set themselves up perfectly for whatever the new baseball revenue reality is. So they could overspend on Kyle Schwarber on a 1 year deal, get him in here, see what the new economics look like, and talk extension. So that's the path I see to Schwarber. The path to trade Hunter Greene, I think you're absolutely right. It would have to be breaking news, knock your socks off, MLB Network's cutting into existing program kind of trade. It would have to be a big, big deal in order for Nick Krall to pull the trigger.
Are you kidding me? They can't interrupt the 15th showing of Field of Dreams during the offseason. Are you crazy?
If you trade him, they will come. It's just that kind of a deal, man. I'm telling you, it would have to be that big a deal. But I like how you frame that, because it's not a matter of like, well, Hunter Greene's contract's expiring, so they've got to trade him. They have to move him. No, they don't have to do anything except run him out there every fifth day. That's the only thing they have to do. So that's how I rank those rumors. But do I believe that that's all that's going on? I want to be clear that I do think Nick Krall's working on things. It's just not in the tier A name list. It's the guys you've been talking about. It's O'Hearn. It's the Garcias. It's the guys that aren't going to result in everybody wanting to see WLW TV down there for a hold up the jersey press conference. But it's guys that will make the team better. It's players that have some flaws that they can get inexpensively that may perform better at GABP. It's those kind of deals. That's what Nick Krall's really working on. But I think he does have an eye to what's going on with Kyle Schwarber, and I think he is definitely taking phone calls on Hunter Greene.
Yeah, I think that the reported meeting at the general manager meetings, and I'm blanking on, was it Florida? Yeah, I think it was down in Orlando, that Nick Krall had with Pete Alonso's agent, I think was to check a box. Like, hey, we talked to him, all right? We talked to him. He wants too much money. That's not going to happen. But I also think too, like, this is also the point in the offseason where you're seeing articles from ESPN.com or MLB.com or The Athletic or something like that, where they're like, we polled some opposing GMs from around the league, and they think that the Reds will be one of the most active teams this offseason. Don't go crazy about that, because that's general and unprovable until things actually happen. So that's an easy thing to say. We can sit here and tell you we think that the Reds are going to be crazy busy. At the end of the day, that can mean a lot of different things. And if you ask Nick Krall whether he would go for a Kyle Schwarber, call it a day, or go get a quantity of guys who maybe all of them put together don't even necessarily equal up to the WAR that Kyle Schwarber has, but he can plug multiple holes, that's what he's going to go do. I do find it a little bit interesting, though, the point that you brought up of if they could get Kyle Schwarber, there was an update to the Phillies side of the rumor that apparently the Phillies and Kyle Schwarber are actually far apart on a deal, that they're not close, although they said that people around the organization still believe that it will get done eventually. But that sort of follows along the lines of what you said.
Yeah, and it makes sense to me, because Kyle Schwarber is not going to go back to Philadelphia on a 1-year deal. If Kyle Schwarber goes back to Philadelphia, it's going to be his last contract. Yeah. That's the contract he's going to get from the Phillies. If he's got to change teams anyway, maximize your 1-year deal, wait for the new economics, see what you can get on the open market again. I think that's how that plays out. That makes complete sense to me that from the Phillies specifically, he's going to want a deal that ends his free agent portion of his career, that sees him finish his career as a member of the Philadelphia Phillies.
But the good news is that not all additions have to come by addition. Sometimes addition by subtraction helps out the Reds, just like with what they're doing down in St. Louis. The next time you're looking to get into an event, you got to use Gametime to get there, because Gametime makes the ticket buying process simple. Whether it is showing you your view from your seat, showing you your all-in pricing before you ever put the ticket in your cart, so many great things. And there's even zone deals and great last-minute deals on Gametime, whether you're talking about a game, a football game, a basketball game, whether you're talking about a concert, a comedy event, all of it can be found on Gametime. I use Gametime all the time. In fact, I got the chance to go to a Cyclones game here recently. Use Gametime to get there. Gametime's going to have you covered. Download the Gametime app today, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB. You'll save an extra $20 off that first purchase. So you'll get some good deals, and you'll get an extra $20 off with that promo code LOCKEDONMLB. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Gametime today. Thank you for making Locked On Reds part of your day, and thank you for joining us here on this live show. If it's your first listen today, thank you for that, and thank you for making us your first listen each and every day, and thank you for helping make Locked On the #1 sports podcast network in the country. It's been a lot of fun. We're going to continue to be with you all throughout the off season, so make sure you hit subscribe and become an everydayer if you already aren't. All right, Steve, it was good news. Not necessarily the kind of news where we get to celebrate a new Reds player and talk about what number they're going to wear and where they're going to play in the lineup and all this other stuff. This one was about the St. Louis Cardinals, because they sent Sonny Gray and $20 million. It's that whole scene from Moneyball, right, where it's just like, no, they're paying you this much to be on our team. They're paying Sonny Gray $20 million to be a Boston Red Sox next year. And they got back a couple of pitchers in the deal, a couple of pitching prospects in the deal. But that's going to be the mantra of the offseason, because they said this is just the beginning for St. Louis. So guess what? The Cardinals, we're not worried about the Cardinals facing the Reds in 2026.
Just once I would love the Reds to be on a receiving end of that deal where they get a really good player and they get his contract paid for. It drives me crazy.
Matt
but
Kemp,
look, there's that kind of counts, and maybe the Homer Bailey trade counts for how much money in that same deal, right? How much money that was exchanged hands, but
the Kyle Farmer trade, you missed
the Kyle Farmer trade. Yeah, sorry about that. Couple things with this deal. First of all, to Mrs. Sonny Gray, who who didn't let Sonny come to Cincinnati. If you recall, when he signed that deal with St. Louis, the Reds had actually offered him just a skosh more money to come back to Cincinnati. But the wife, she didn't want to come to the Queen City. She wanted to go to St. Louis. I hope she likes winter in Boston. That's just what I'm saying. Secondly, I am excited to see the Cardinals tear it down. I have made no secret about my dislike for that organization and their crazy fans and their devil magic and everything else that goes on down there with their voodoo dolls and their smoke and mirrors. This warms my heart. This is a season of giving from our good friends down in St. Louis. Look, they've got a guy running the show down there whose claim to fame, as you eloquently put it during our show prep, was tearing things down to the studs. I think if it's not nailed down in St. Louis, it's getting traded this offseason, just so he can rebuild the way that he wants with the people that he wants. So I'm looking forward to this. The Cardinals are probably going to be the last place team in the National League Central for 2026. The thing that's going to save them is, I have said many times now, I don't think there's going to be baseball in 2027. So that gives him 2 years to rebuild it versus having to put a subpar team out there for 2 years.
I would love to say, since it's officially the Christmas season, I would love to say every time that the Cardinals hit a rebuild, an angel gets its wings, but that means that there's one angel with one wings, because I don't remember the last time that the Cardinals actually did a full rebuild. So this is going to be interesting to see, because it kind of feels like for the last couple of years, they've been a rudderless boat, where for a moment last year, I think they were like second place in the division. And we're thinking, are things turning around for them? And then they bottomed out. I remember all kinds of pictures all over social media last year, because people love to harp on the attendance at Great American Ballpark, but people started including Busch Stadium in those harping on things on social media. So there was a lot of that last year. I expect a lot of that this year, because best fans in baseball, because they haven't been treated to the kind of teardown that Kyle Bloom, the new man in charge there in St. Louis, is going to put them through, because he did this in Boston. He did this multiple times in Tampa Bay, and he was really good at it. Did it in Boston with a lot less success. So we'll see if he can kind of turn things around for himself here in St. Louis. But Sonny Gray was just the beginning. All people are reporting that basically if somebody offers something, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be that good. Like, I'm pretty sure if we offer them a can of Skyline chicken chili at this point, they could probably get Nolan Arenado. Maybe you have to offer the regular chili to get like Nolan Gorman or Brendan Donovan. But at the same time, as long as you are agreeing to take on the contracts of those players, I think St. Louis is just ready to start over and move on.
And it's interesting you brought up Nolan, because I wanted to talk about him for a second. If I remember correctly, he's still on that deal that he signed with Colorado, and Colorado is still sending money to St. Louis to cover a piece of that contract already.
I think so, yeah.
So if the Reds could pull that off, they would get the money that Colorado is forwarding for the contract, and could maybe get most of the balance from the Cardinals to get him off their books. They could get him for nearly free, which I'm sure I just got Phil's attention. Phil, did you hear me, Phil? Phil, nearly free. Nearly free is good, Phil. Nearly free.
What kind of a coup would it be for a player on the Reds roster be getting paid by Colorado? That would be hilarious. That would be hilarious. But also, I wonder a little bit. I think there's got to be somebody in Kyle Bloom's office going, you cannot trade these people in division. If you do this, our fans will destroy us. They will absolutely. Like,
that's guaranteed a thing.
I mean, that would be horrible. And that's probably why, like, I remember the last couple of off seasons, there were like little rumors that the Reds were interested in Sonny Gray and acquiring him from St. Louis. But we constantly said, we're like, I think it would take too much. Looking at what Boston gave up. Yeah, they gave up a couple of pitching prospects, but none of them were like their top pitching prospects. So I don't necessarily believe that the Reds couldn't have made the same offer. I just think that the Cardinals are like, embargo, not trading within the Central. That's just not happening. But albeit, like, the way that the Cardinals have been for my lifetime against the Reds is that they've always been that thorn in their side. They've always been the team that the Reds aspire to be. They've always been the team that the Reds hope to be. And now it looks like the Cardinals have joined the Reds, and they have fallen back. Whatever it was that they used to run their organization on, that is gone because they are tearing down. They are getting rid of people and getting prospects and hoping that the prospects that they currently have, i.e. the JJ Weatherholts of the world, will lift their team up eventually. But Lord knows they are going to have a turbulent season next year because that'll be Weatherholt getting into it. They've really got to figure out who they've got. Just blanked on the guy's name on Jordan Walker. They've really got to find out what they've got in a couple of different guys. And if you ask our friend JD over at Locked On Cardinals, he's not sold on the Jordan Walkers of the world. So I know he's going to have a very interesting season trying to break down exactly where the Cardinals are going with all this.
I can't wait to do some crossovers with JD. I can't wait. Those are going to be
like
quality.
We did them after losses,
Folks,
didn't we?
That's going to be appointment television when we have JD on this show next season. So make sure you are there to watch that because I'm going to let him have it, and I can't wait. All right, Jeff, we have reached my favorite point of these live shows because we are now ready to dive into the comments and the questions from the viewers that are here with us live on this Black Friday. We're going to get into your questions coming up next.
The big game's this Saturday, and there's no better time to get on the action over on FanDuel. Of course, the big game we're all talking about, Cincinnati at TCU. Bearcats getting 3.5 points. I don't know that I feel great about it, but I'm going to take the 3.5 points. Something tells me the Bearcats got some magic in them to finish the regular season. And I'm feeling the hatred from Steve, and not talking about Ohio State, Michigan, but hey, Ryan Day doesn't pay attention to that game, so why should we? But you should pay attention to every game on over at FanDuel. New users can place a $5 wager, and if it wins, you get $300 in bonus bets. Make sure you check out FanDuel today. There is no better way to get paid for your sports knowledge than over at FanDuel. I knew you'd like that one.
You, sir, just OH, baby.
No, it's okay, though, because he's going to lose again, and then he's going to go win the national championship, and they'll rename Columbus Ryan Day Town.
Jeff's not allowed to talk anymore. He's now muted. So we're going to dive into the questions and the comments, ladies and gentlemen. I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say because Jeff can't talk. You guys have been great thus far with your comments throughout the show. If you've got stuff that you wanted to talk about up there higher, put them in again. That way we don't have to scroll back. We will be glad to take them on. I did see something that I don't want to go back and find, but I don't want to wait for them to re-enter it. And I want to start with the Dylan Cease contract with the Blue Jays. And the question was, and I'm sorry, I can't remember who posted it, but the question was, does that increase the market for Hunter Greene? Does that allow Nick Krall to ask for more now that Cease is off the market? And the price point. I think the price point is the key thing to focus in here for, because what they paid for Cease versus what you would pay for Hunter Greene, yeah, you would have to give up a lot to get him, but it's very, very affordable after that.
In case you missed it, 7 years, $210 million, $30 million a year for Dylan Cease. And remind me, Dylan Cease was second, third. No, he had a 4.5 ERA last year. He was not like a Cy Young guy. I mean, he was fine. But I certainly remember there were points in the year where our friend Carlos, who's a big Padres fan, and our friend Javi, who hosts Locked On Padres, were just like, oh, Dylan Cease. Oh, boy. Can we just figure this out? So hopefully he figures it out for Toronto, because Toronto and pitching has just not been a very consistent thing. But I do agree with this question. Like, I think that there is a few more general managers who were in on the starting pitching market that are probably now wondering, would I rather give up prospects than that kind of a money? Because the Blue Jays are in a specific realm of spending that other teams aren't. I saw that great, and I wish I still had the – oh, I do. Yes. Sometimes my hoarding helps me out here. They are very interesting in that when you look at how much money they reportedly made, according to Forbes, in revenue for 2024, and how much they spent on payroll and tax in 2025, they're one of the few teams that greatly outspent their ranking in revenue. They were 13th in revenue. They were 5th in spending. The Blue Jays do not mind spending a lot of money. So I think that makes them a little bit of an outlier here, but that's going to scare the other teams that do not want to spend as much as that is going to take to get a free agent starting pitcher, and the trade market will be a little bit in higher demand. So I think we got a little bit closer to Nick Krall getting that, oh my gosh, kind of trade, but I don't necessarily think that pushed it toward like, ooh, this is very, very likely now.
I can tell we haven't done a live in a while. The comment section is lit with great questions, Jeff. I love this because this is interesting. Chris wants to know, if the Pirates spend more than Cincinnati, will that be a failed offseason? And that's an interesting question, because a lot of us have the tendency to look at an offseason and look at the moves that were made. And that's the first question. Well, what did they spend? How much did they spend? How much money is involved here? And you can't use that as your measuring stick per se. It's a piece of the measuring stick, but it's not the entire measuring stick. For example, Hunter Greene, the contract we were just talking about. It's not a big money deal. Hunter's not getting $35 million a year to stay in Cincinnati for the extra amount of time. But it was a great move for the Reds. That was a quality A+ move, locking him up, creating some stability, and gaining a year or two of his free agent time, right? Great move. As far as the spending goes, I don't trust the Pirates to be able to cross the street from their ballpark to the parking garage. So They can spend all the money they want, but if they're spending it on, names that may not necessarily deliver, because I'm telling you, if you've got two teams offering you very similar money, and one of them is the frickin' Pittsburgh Pirates, which one are you picking? I'm telling you, it's not Pittsburgh. It's not that sad little city. So I don't necessarily think, I think they're going to find themselves in a situation, we talk about the Reds, with sometimes you're going to have to overspend to get guys here. And what that means is they're not going to be able to bring in the talent level that you would think. Let's say they spend an extra $100 million. I don't know what they're throwing around for numbers, but if they spent an extra $100 million, that's not the same as if you were spending an extra $100 million in a market that has some history and some excitement about winning. There's nothing when you look at that Pittsburgh roster that makes me say, ooh, if I could get in on that action, maybe there's something there. Whereas you look at the Reds roster, there's a lot of pieces on the team already that you can look at and be like, if they're fixing this problem with me, that team's built already to kind of make a run. So I'm not worried about the Pittsburgh Pirates. And so to answer the question, no. The Pirates spend more dollars. That doesn't mean the offseason's failed. What they spent those dollars on is the evaluation tool we're going to have to look at.
Yeah, it's intriguing to me because I looked this up and I wasn't necessarily sure, but do you know, and I had this thought in my head, so you might have it too, but do you know what the largest free agent contract is that the Pirates have ever handed out? It was 11 years ago that they did this. Francisco Liriano for a 3-year, $39 million contract. So that's it. 3 years, $13 million per year is the largest that they've ever gone. So they are wading into uncharted territory, whatever it is that they're going to sign. So that's going to have to be a wait and see for me. I know they were talking to, I believe it was Okamoto, one of the Japanese sluggers Okamoto's not going to get posted until after January 15th. So wherever he signs, it's going to be a couple of months before we know that. But I know that the Pirates were one of the teams that were talking to him, at least from some of the rumors that I've seen reported. They're talking to everybody else, just like Nick Krall is. But I wonder where they go with all of that, because $13 million per year being your largest free agent contract that you've ever gone. Again, that's not that much lower than the Reds' largest free agent contract. But that also doesn't necessarily mean that I am now worried that the Pirates are going to go sign Kyle Schwarber, Pete Alonso, Kyle Tucker, one of those guys. That would feel like a monumental shift in philosophy for their organization. So you're right. Until I see where it is that they go, as much as I'm not worried about the Cardinals, I'm not necessarily worried about the spending of the Pittsburgh Pirates, especially when I compare it with what the Reds will spend on. Because I don't believe the Reds are going to sit on their hands like the Pirates have for the last decade.
Right. This from Lane. Just throwing ideas at the wall. Could Mike Yastrzemski be a decent option for the Reds? I saw that he's a free agent. I would take a flyer on Mike. I'm not sure where Spot Track had him projected, Jeff, but I think you and I kicked him around when we were talking about possibilities, and I think we both landed on we'd be okay with that if they did it kind of thing, depending on price.
He certainly would be interesting. Actually, last year he had a 109 OPS plus, so that would put him right there with Ellie as far as like best hitters on the team. But even just comparing him to like normal hitters, his career, he's a 113 OPS plus guy. So it's not as if you're talking about some dude that just barely gets the thing done, which is some cases what we look at when the Reds are making their moves. But I would also say I think he's more in the vein of like Adolis Garcia or something like that. I think if Mike Yastrzemski signs, it's probably not going to be till later in January, probably closer to pitchers and catchers reporting, just because he's not. I don't know that he's in. I know he's not in tier 1. I don't know that he's in tier 2 either. He might be like a third tier outfielder at this point, because the other part of this is he is a little bit further on in his career. He's going to be, I think he's going to be 35 for most of the season. He'll be 36 at some point in the year. And Spot Track does have his valuation at 11.3, so somewhere between 11 and 12 million. That's right there with Ryan O'Hearn. That's right there with Adolis Garcia. And so if I'm comparing him with those other two guys, I'm going to go O'Hearn 1. I'm going to go Garcia 2, and then Yastrzemski 3.
Yeah, I agree with that. And Garcia really intrigues me. I would love for them to get Garcia and just see if that power comes back at GAPP. This is one that you and I have been talking about, Jeff, and just amongst ourselves, and we haven't really dove into it. So let's spend a little time on it, but I imagine this will be a segment somewhere down the road. But the question is this: look at Reece Hinds' numbers in AAA last year and tell me that he doesn't need to get a shot for a full-time outfield spot. He's only been given less than 100 at-bats in MLB. He's your power bat. I don't know what's going on between Reece Hinds and the Reds organization, but it very much feels like he's getting the Nick Senzel near the end treatment. And I don't understand why. When the Reds were desperate need last year of some quality at bats and some power and some time, Reece Hinds never got a phone call. And that tells me pretty much all I need to know about what the organization thinks about him. And I don't know what happened, Jeff. I didn't hear anything. The people I talked to haven't heard anything, but something definitely happened.
I find it strange, and I don't necessarily ascribe to AAA stats and that being the reason that I want to see a guy. The reason that I want to see more of Reece Hinds is his peripherals. Dude has one of the fastest swings in the major leagues, at least according to the bat tracking stuff that Baseball Savant uses. Now, of course, he's only played a little bit, so they're not saying that he is qualified to be ranked in any of these numbers, but had he played long enough to get qualified, he'd be in the top 80 or top 85% of swing speed in the major leagues. He'd also be in the top 90% in barrel rate. He hits the ball hard. He swings the bat fast. His issue is discipline, plate discipline. And I feel like you can work on that. Like, I feel like with bat speed and his quality of contact and things like that, the ability to hit the ball hard, that's the hard thing to work on. But for some reason, it almost feels, and this isn't just a Reece Hinds thing. This feels like a Reds thing, where it feels as though they would rather have somebody with good plate discipline that doesn't necessarily hit the ball that hard, as opposed to the opposite, because they would rather teach hard hitting than teach, batter eye at the plate. And I feel like that would be the thing that would at least be a little bit easier to teach, like hard hitting and, changing a guy's swing. That could change so many different things about his game. Reece Hinds has the swing. He just now needs to focus in on the strike zone and really understanding that. So I would, and I agree with the commenter, I would love to see more of Reece Hinds. The problem is the Reds are telling us they don't trust something about Reece Hinds. And as much as we have wavering trust in how they evaluate players, I still tend to believe that they have guys that know what they're talking about. So I would love to see more from Reece Hinds, but if Nick Krall or Terry Francona or whoever were to step in front of a microphone tomorrow and tell me that Reece Hinds is the starting left fielder for opening day, I don't necessarily think that makes me feel super comfortable, just because of the lack of opportunity they've given him. And I would love to see more from him, but he is not the answer, as it were.